Long ball is going to go for a touchdown. The game's over. Webster Slaughter.
Metcalf will go for the score. Unbelievable.
45-40. Run, William, run. He's got blockers in front. 5. Touchdown. Joshua Cribbs turns disaster into a score.
Sight wants it all on this one for Logan, and he is there.
Jim Brown to the 30. Jim Brown is going to go in for another touchdown.
The Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow.
It is Baker Mayfield.
I woke up feeling dangerous.
Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to another pregame edition of the 1085 Gridiron Podcast. I am your host, Anthony Jokey. As always, I got my co-host, Jack McCurdy, with me. How you doing today, Jack?
Very good, very good. Looking forward to this weekend's game. Looking forward to football across the board, and looking forward to breaking down this game as well.
Yeah, it's been a long couple of weeks for me. I'm glad I finally have this weekend off. I get to enjoy some college football tomorrow. Got a wedding to go to, open bar, which is always wonderful. And Sunday, get to enjoy watching the Browns and Denver Broncos game, which we'll be breaking down here in a second. It's nice to kind of relax after a rough couple weeks of work. So let's get into this right away. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is the injury report. 3 Browns have been ruled out for Sunday: Demarius Randall, Eric Murray, Farrell Brown. Danny Quale, defensive tackle, was placed on IR. The Browns promoted Steven Carlson from the practice squad to take his spot. As we mentioned on our last podcast, Joe Flacco was ruled out for this Sunday. The Broncos actually placed him on IR. The starting right tackle, Juwan James, and cornerback Bryce Callahan were both ruled out for the Sunday game. And the Broncos will be starting Brandon Allen, who we'll talk about in a minute. But, Jack, let me go back to Demarius Randall for a second. Are you disappointed with how his season has turned out, because he really hasn't been able to get on the field, especially in a contract year where we thought that he was going to play really well with wanting to get paid after the season?
Yeah, it's definitely disappointing. I mean, he's missed, I think this will be his 5th game of the year. So obviously we all had high expectations for the secondary coming into the season. We had 4 caliber starters right there with Greedy and Denzel at the cornerback spot, and then Randall and Morgan Burnett, and all 4 haven't been out on the field much together, and that's disappointing. Obviously, Denzel and Greedy just got back last week, had okay games, good games, somewhat. And of course, Burnett's been up and down. He's obviously been dealing with injuries as well. But, it's disappointing for Randall, because if he would have had another productive season, there's no doubt he was going to get a big-time contract in free agency. Now you're looking at it where he will probably take a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal, whether with the Browns or another team, and then hope to cash in, because he's still fairly young. He could still get that big-time contract here in the next couple years, but he's definitely not going to get it this offseason. I know some people have been labeling him injury-prone, just because a guy's been injured a couple weeks, and it's a muscle injury, if anything. I wouldn't label injury-prone on him. I mean, these things happen all the time. But it's just a disappointment, because we haven't seen the full strength of our secondary yet this year, and who knows if we're going to at this point, because who's to say another injury won't happen to the other starters.
Yeah, and it's been a position of weakness on the defense. I would say the safety position has been the weakest on the defense. So not having him in there doesn't help that. For when he does play, he's played all right. But, we've talked about being available is the best ability that a football player can have. And when you're not available, you hurt the other 10 guys around you who count on you, on somebody who has become, I guess you could say he's kind of become a leader of the defense. So hopefully he can get back healthy, get back in the secondary, and down the stretch when with the schedule getting easier, he'll be able to play for the second half of the season and really contribute and be the kind of player that we were hoping that he would be this season. We mentioned Eric Murray and Farrell Brown being out, Danny Equality being placed on IR. Jack, who of those three players do you think the Browns are going to miss the most?
I would probably say Equale, because when I see him come on the field, I mean, he's been able to hold it down for the most part at the defensive tackle spot to give guys like Ogunjobi and Sheldon Richardson a breather. Eric Murray's been more inconsistent at the secondary spot when he's had to fill in. And Farrell Brown, he's had his flashes as well as a receiver. I mean, he's had a couple catches. He's made some good blocks, especially in the Baltimore game. But I would say Equale the most. I know they picked up Eli Anku. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I know they picked him up last week, so I'm sure we'll get a look at him on Sunday, because I don't think they're going to give Ogunjobi and Sheldon Richardson a full load now. You still want to keep them healthy just in case we go on a stretch run here coming up. Hopefully we do. But I would say Equale is probably going to be the biggest loss out of those couple guys that are out this week. Obviously, Equale's out for the rest of the season at this point.
Do you feel that Devereaux Lawrence is going to be able to step up and get more percentage of snaps in Equale's absence?
You would definitely hope so. I mean, you would hope that Lawrence will be able to step up and play a little more. Maybe they kick in Chad Thomas and some more defensive tackle, give him some more run. Obviously, they're going to try to make the most out of that draft pick because he has not panned out so far. He did play some D tackle at Miami, so maybe they give him a bit more time, but we'll see. I really hope Devereaux steps up. He was such a highlight to watch in the preseason, and he's been relatively quiet throughout the regular season when he's gotten an opportunity.
You talk about moving Chad Thomas to, letting him play inside. There's somebody who they just traded that could have played backup defensive end if you were to kick him inside. But we're not going to go on that rant again. It's not worth it at this point. We did mention the starting right tackle for the Denver Broncos, Juwan James, is out. Now, we've run into this multiple times this season, Jack, where you expect the Browns' defensive line to dominate because the opposing offensive line is playing reserve players. We saw it week 1 with the Tennessee Titans with Taylor Lewan being out. You saw it against Seattle at home. They were missing 2 starters on that offensive line. But the Browns were still not really able to create as much pressure. Do you have confidence that the Browns are going to be able to create pressure with another reserve lineman that's going to be starting for the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, this week I actually do, because, while other teams were able to utilize their tight ends, Denver's missing their starting tight end as well this week. Jeff Hireman, formerly of Ohio State, he's out. They have Noah Fant, who was their number 1 pick. He'll step up into the starting role this week. So you definitely hope so. And the Broncos' offensive line has not been that well this year. It's definitely one of their weaknesses. We talked about it on Wednesday's episode. Garrett Bowles has been bad as the left tackle, which is unfortunate for Denver, and it should play well for Cleveland on Sunday. With their poor offensive line, you got to hope Cleveland's pass rush steps up and has a monster game and makes Brandon Allen and the rest of that offense very uncomfortable. But like Vic Fangio and that coaching staff have kept it competitive for them despite the 2-6 mark this year. So you got to think that they are going to scheme this up well enough to limit the Browns' pass rush, and hopefully, for their sake, they give Brandon Allen some time to make some throws. Now, for the Browns' sake, hopefully, Steve Wilkes attacks this weakness and the pass rush unleashes what we saw in the preseason. And we've seen a lot of Myles Garrett, and Olivier Vernon's starting to catch on. But, hopefully you see all of it come together and they just dominate the way that teams have dominated our offensive line so far through the first 7 games.
Yeah, the Denver Broncos O-line has really struggled, like you talk about, through the first half of the season. They are tied for third with the most offensive holding penalties with 16. So I would tend to think that if you can force Denver, you have a lot of guys that are really good pass rushers. Like we talked about, Myles Garrett, Olivier Vernon, who played a better game last week. Richardson can get in there, and so can Ogunjobi, among some other guys. So if you can get in there, force some holding penalties, get these guys into, second and long, third and long, with the guy who's never thrown a ball in an NFL game before, with Brandon Allen, I really think this defense can be very successful this week. And the Broncos, I think, with Brandon Allen starting this week, are going to want to run the football. And if you're able to force them into those second and long, third and long situations to where they have to throw, it's really going to be a huge win for the Browns defense.
No doubt. But they do that. The Browns defense is really going to have to focus on the Denver skill players. Cortland Sutton has emerged. He is becoming a star wide receiver. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a good quarterback to throw to him. Flacco has struggled at times. Obviously, he's been sacked a lot, but he has been able to connect with Sutton. 39 catches, 636 yards, 3 touchdowns. You mentioned the running game. Royce Freeman, Phillip Lindsay, a solid 1-2 punch. It seems though, no matter who's running Denver's scouting department, they find these running backs in the middle to late rounds or even undrafted like Phillip Lindsay. So there is talent on that side of the football. It's just a matter of, are they going to be able to be effective with essentially a rookie quarterback in Allen with all the weapons surrounding him?
Yeah, let's talk more about Brandon Allen. We mentioned that he has not thrown a pass in an NFL game so far in his career. What do you think the best way is for this Browns defense to confuse them? Do you want to go after him with pressure, or, like we said, do you want to focus on a run game and force him to beat you with his arm?
In this case, because what's a quarterback's best friend? Turning to your back and seeing that you have that running game. So I would actually focus on trying to shut down Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. They've been dominant when they run the ball. They both average over 4.5 yards per target or per touch, whether it's running the ball or as a receiver. So I would look to shut them down because they're not, and you do that. I mean, essentially with that poor offensive line in front of him, Allen's not going to have a lot of time to throw. I would still throw in some exotic blitz packages and really try to rattle him early because he's not used to facing a pass rush like this. He hasn't seen anything like this since college, and he came out of the SEC, so he had to face some tough defenses during his time at Arkansas. So obviously that's going to get to him, but if they can shut down Lindsay and Freeman, then there's no doubt that the Browns defense is going to rattle Allen and force him to make some mistakes, and then hopefully our defense can capitalize on that, and thus the offense capitalize on it and score some touchdowns.
Yeah, this Browns offense is not going to have an easy week this week. The Broncos defense is really good. Vic Fangio, who they brought in here, or in Denver, who they brought in, as a defensive guy, has really kind of excelled so far this season. The Denver Broncos are 4th in yards allowed per game with only 304 and a half. They're only allowing 19 points per game. They're allowing 110 yards on the ground per game, and they're only allowing 195 passing yards a game. So the Browns defense or Browns offense is going to have a challenge, and this Browns offense has been facing tough challenges all season on and off the field. We talked about the thing that went on with Baker Mayfield in the media this week. And that's one of the off the field things. On the field, they've tried to integrate all these different pieces into this offense, as well as flipping around offensive linemen to get the best five guys out there in order to protect Baker Mayfield. So, Jack, if you're Freddie Kitchens, Todd Monken, what is your game plan going into Saturday afternoon at Mile High Stadium against the Denver Broncos?
You got to stop the Broncos pass rush. I think that is the biggest thing. With a new defensive coordinator and a new defensive scheme, the Broncos defense has kept chugging. Von Miller, he's 30 years old, has been in the league almost a decade. He's still getting after it. They lost Bradley Chubb early in the season to a torn ACL. Guys like DeMarcus Walker and Derek Wolfe have stepped up, and they each have 4 sacks along with Von Miller. Yeah, this team has 17 sacks as a whole, so that's the one thing. They're still getting after the quarterback. So the Browns are going to have to scheme up offensively to make sure to keep Baker upright, because this pass rush will get after him. As bad as the offensive line has been plagued to be, the numbers say they haven't been as bad. At times they have been, but more times than not, it's that Baker's not getting the football out, and he's rolling out, trying to scramble trying to extend a play, and that's been the downfall of the offensive line. They've given Baker the time to throw; he's just not executing it. So, but you're going up against a tough defense from top to bottom, from up front to the secondary. So it's an order on the offensive line, but also on Baker Mayfield to get the ball out quickly to his playmakers and, find ways to move the ball, move the chains, and get into an opportunity to put points on the board.
You saw Chris Harris talking to the media this week, and he said that he wants Odell Beckham, and that's who he's going to get this weekend. Do you feel that Odell can have success against this Broncos defense and Chris Harris?
No doubt. I mean, Odell Beckham's a top 5 wide receiver, and he even admitted that him and Baker are still working on their chemistry, their timing. I know a lot of people will turn around and say, well, you should have been at OTAs, you should have been at mini camps, but, everybody's still trying to get into a rhythm, obviously. The Browns haven't been in a rhythm offensively outside of Nick Chubb, who's 3rd in the NFL in rushing. So I think Odell can definitely get after it. It's just a matter of, can he get open, and when Baker throws him the football, can he catch it? That's the one downside to Beckham this year, is there's been times where Baker's gotten him the football and Odell hasn't hauled it in. So it's up to him, obviously, but I think he can definitely go toe-to-toe with Chris Harris and win that matchup.
Are you like me and feel that this week should be another heavy dose of Nick Chubb? I know they have Kareem Hunt coming back next week, but I think that they could really control this game if they're able to utilize Nick Chubb in both the running and the passing game, and just control the time possession, control the line of scrimmage, impose their will on the defensive line with run blocking that was much better last week after making the switch from Greg Robinson to McRae.
No doubt, and that's the weakness of the Denver Broncos defense. They are 19th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed, 11th in rushing touchdowns. They've only given up 6, but they also give up 4.1 yards per carry. So when I look at this, I think if you're going to win, that's how you win. You win up front. And while Denver does have a tough defensive front, like you said, the run blocking was good. That's what Justin McCray's good at. And I think this is setting up to where this is going to be the Browns offense down the stretch. You have Nick Chubb, you have Kareem Hunt coming back next week. Those are 2 of the, I would say, 10 most talented running backs in the league when everybody's active on the field across the league. So I think this is setting up to where that needs to be the strength of the Browns offense. You run the ball, it's going to open things up in the passing game, and that's when Baker Mayfield's going to be able to attack, and that's when guys like Landry, Beckham, Njoku once he comes back, Higgins once he gets back involved in the offense, and Callaway. If the running game is going and what we expected to be with Nick Chubb and once Kareem Hunt's back, the Browns offense, I think, can be successful if they lean heavily on that running game.
There's been a lot of talk this week of, the schedule getting easier, but, that's been going on for a while, but, we're finally at this part, and, the last 9 games look promising in terms of making a little bit of run and making a potential playoff push. Jack, what I want to ask you is this Sunday an absolute must-win for the Browns? If they lose this, are they eliminated from the postseason?
I truly think so. I think this is a season-breaking type of loss if they lose to the Denver Broncos, who is coming in with essentially a rookie quarterback and a team that's 2-6 right now. This is the crossroads for both teams right now. Denver's 2-6, the Browns are 2-5. If either team wins, this could be a momentum builder, and if they lose, it could pretty much signal the end of the season. Denver's they need to start looking at their young guys. They need to start looking at who's going to be a part of this team moving forward. Obviously, Brandon Allen's not the answer. The answer is waiting in the wings. Drew Lock is getting ready to make his return and essentially make his NFL debut. They want to see what they have in him. And we all know about the Browns. The hype train was strong during the offseason. While they have a easy schedule, and I use air quotes when I say that, they have a tough Denver defense this week. They play a tough Buffalo team next week. Pittsburgh is starting to hit their stride, so they're going to be a tough team. Arizona looks tough. They do have to play Miami, Cincinnati twice, and then they get Baltimore again. And we know Baltimore's beatable because obviously the Browns did it a few weeks back. But this is definitely a must-win because they need to start learning how to win. I think that's the biggest thing that's wrong with this franchise is they don't know how to win and they don't know how to handle winning once they do start winning a game or two. So this is definitely a must win. And if they don't win, you obviously know what's going to happen just based on history here in Cleveland and Northeast Ohio. The talk of change is going to start again. And there's already people done with Freddie Kitchens. There's people done with Baker Mayfield. That noise is going to get louder if they don't win on Sunday. So if they win, some of the stuff that's gone on in the last week or two will be put to rest. But if they lose, the noise is only going to get louder and louder.
Well, Jack, give me your prediction for this game. Do the Browns win on Sunday?
I don't see how the Browns don't win this game on Sunday. It is it's the perfect storm for a win. You're facing a team that's vulnerable. You have the weight of the world on this team's back, and you have all these guys in that locker room saying to the world, it's put up or shut up time. Baker's essentially said it. Odell Beckham said it. Joel Bitonio said it. Everybody's saying it. And I truly think that they know that they need to go out and win this game. I feel like a lot of guys are pissed off, and I think they're going to take it out on Denver. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. But I truly think the Browns are going to win. I say the Browns the final score is going to be 17-13. I think Baker Mayfield has a good game. I think this defense has a monster game against Brandon Allen and that poor Broncos offensive line. And I think our offense does just enough to win this game. I could see Nick Chubb going for another 125 to 150 yards and being the X factor of this game. But I truly think the Browns are going to win. And Anthony, I'm going to do it. They are going to be my lock of the week, too. I'm going with lock of the week with the Browns.
You know what? I hate you right now because that was totally going to be my lock of the week. I had this whole speech planned out for it and whatnot, and I was going to take them as my lock of the week, but you really threw me off with that one. I'm with you. I'm really confident that they're going to win this Sunday. I think after all the stuff that's gone on in the media this past week, you're going to get a team that's super focused. When they played Seattle, I haven't seen them that focused this season, and they were really focused that game. It just turned out that it didn't, they didn't pull a victory out in that one. But I think they're going to come into this game on Sunday really focused, ready to go. I'm with you with Nick Chubb. I think he's going to have 100-plus yards, probably closer to 150 total yards between running and catching. He's going to be the complete X factor for this game, and hopefully he's able to carry us to a win this week and maybe Odell or Jarvis finds the end zone this week. I would put money on it, but I think that running the ball is really going to be the key victory for the Browns winning this one. And I think that the Denver offense is really going to struggle with Brandon Allen in there. So my final score prediction is going to be Browns 27, Denver 10. I think that the Browns are going to control this one start to finish, and I guess I will also make them my lock of the week, even though you completely stole my thunder and snuck them out right before I did.
That's okay. That's what I do. I steal your thunder all the time.
Yes, you do. That's right. Before we get on out of here, Jack, is there anything else you want to discuss?
Not at all.
All right. You guys can follow Jack on Twitter at JMcCurryCLE. You can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Joki, Joki. Be sure to follow our website on Twitter at The Dogland. That's where you would find the feed from this show as well. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We absolutely appreciate it. With all that, and the Browns being the lock of the week this week, hopefully we're having a victory podcast sometime Sunday night. And as always, and most importantly, go Browns.